West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Cohen.
Let me speak about the radical left. You and I have both been parts of faculties and faculty senates and understand that the left has taken over our institutions. The reason that they are apoplectic right now, the reason that so many anchors on MSNBC, for example, are losing their minds daily is because our side is winning. And so I come full circle in this response and just want to encourage you with some substance that we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
That was the Conservative Heritage Foundation president Kevin Roberts offering a not-so-thinly veiled threat about not only the broader goals of the Republicans' Project 2025 agenda, but also a warning about the lengths they are willing to go to in order to enact it. Not for nothing, but you don't invoke the spilling of blood unless that's part of your plan. Now, first of all, just a note on the threat of violence here. We ignore these warnings at our own peril. The right wants the violence. Take January 6th, for example. That was the Republican Party testing the fence to see where it was weakest so that next time they can succeed where they previously failed. January 6th wasn't a one-off. It wasn't a fluke. It certainly wasn't a mistake. It was a training session and a warning of what's to come. They are banking on Americans becoming normalized to the violence so that the next time we won't be as outraged when they try to get away with it. But I want to be clear, this is not normal and we cannot normalize it. As for Project 2025, this policy platform is obviously extreme enough that its authors are proclaiming it the next American revolution. The playbook is over 900 pages long, but here are some of its especially toxic parts. Let's start with how it seeks to erase reproductive freedom nationwide. Here's one Project 2025 contributor summarizing how reproductive freedom is immoral.
The reason surrogacy and IVF are immoral is because they interfere into the family. They break up the nucleus, the very building block of political society. They separate the reproductive from the conjugal act. I'm sure your nieces are great. I'm sure your nieces are wonderful, I would say. And your nieces have a right to life, and it's good that your nieces exist. The problem for IVF and surrogacy is that no ends, no matter how good, justify immoral means. No ends, no matter how good, justify actions that are intrinsically evil to achieve them. This is the same kind of logic that we would apply to, say, rape. A child who is conceived in rape, I know some. They have a right to life. It's very good that they exist. We like these people. Had your nieces, God forbid, been conceived in the case of rape, you would say, I love my nieces, and how dare you suggest they shouldn't exist? And how dare you say that? I'm not suggesting they shouldn't exist. I'm not suggesting they don't have a right to life. I'm not suggesting they're not good at all. But let's follow this idea to its logical conclusion. Does the fact that your niece's existence is good and they have a right to life, does that fact justify rape? Certainly not. Likewise, good ends can be wonderful and we can celebrate them, but they don't justify immoral means.
Here's Project 2025's plan to use the presidency for revenge on Donald Trump's political and personal enemies.
What would happen, hypothetically, if President Trump ordered a new Trump attorney general to prosecute Democratic officials? I mean, what would happen if the DOJ was tasked with that?
The system is not built for those kinds of abuses of process. There's very broad latitude that is given to, in particular, to investigations. However, if there were, for example, a baseless subpoena as part of that kind of an investigation, you could go to court. Part of the challenges, and we've seen this in the Supreme Court, where this bizarre granting of presidential immunity, Anderson, even to order SEAL Team 6 to commit assassinations. Can you believe that we're talking about that? That the dissenting opinion says this opinion would allow the president to assassinate his political enemies if he used an official vehicle like SEAL Team 6? Why bother to investigate them when you have that power? It is a nightmarish prospect, and hundreds of autocratic threats by Donald Trump, his supporters, his allies, his former aides. We have to take that very seriously as a threat.
But Project 2025 doesn't stop there. It also includes reinstating and expanding Donald Trump's xenophobic Muslim ban, putting more guns in schools by way of arming teachers. Trump is planning to build huge camps to detain suspected illegal immigrants while they wait to be deported, all the while families are ripped apart. Ending any and all acknowledgement of gender identity and LGBT people. Instead of promoting LGBT equity, Project 2025 calls for the government programs to be replaced by policies that support the formation of straight families, reinstating the ban on patriotic transgender Americans serving in the military, cutting money from school meals, which Project 2025 calls an entitlement program, despite it being the only hot meal for many food-insecure children, dismantling the Department of Education and attempting to claw back Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness, eliminating the Early Education Head Start program, rolling back all of the progress we've made on tackling climate change. And frankly, all of this agenda is putting into a more devastating light when you consider the recent Supreme Court ruling regarding presidential immunity. Because now, Donald Trump would have not only the blueprint to move forward, but he would be able to enact that agenda with zero liability if he uses criminal means to do so. This Supreme Court has made him untouchable, above the law, just in time for him to usher in the biggest rollback of rights and freedoms in U.S. history. In fact, my Legal Breakdown co-host Glenn Kirshner had that point exactly.
This is not hyperbole, nor is it a stretch. In fact, this is exactly what Justice Sotomayor pointed out in her dissent. And here it is, Brian. The Supreme Court just delivered a blueprint to any president, but I think our greatest concern is how Donald Trump will then use this blueprint to the danger and disadvantage of democracy. Here's what he gets to do. They said there are certain core presidential powers, and a president is absolutely immune when he acts in furtherance of one of his core presidential powers. They gave two examples of what those are. One, the power to pardon people, and two, the power to consult with his attorney general and high DOJ officials and tell them what to do, of course, in the name of fighting crime. So what they said was that when a president exercises any of his authority in these core presidential power arenas, he can't be questioned about it. Nobody can look behind it. We can't investigate it, and it doesn't matter what his motive was in exercising these powers. So what that means is, in the context of the pardon power, Donald Trump could set up a pardon kiosk in the lobby of the White House, have people lined up who had been convicted of crimes, and sell pardons for $1 million or $1 billion a pop. And the Supreme Court said, as Justice Sotomayor emphasized, nothing could be done about it. Law enforcement, prosecutors, and courts could do nothing about it because it's a core presidential power. That's literally what the Supreme Court said a president can do. Let's shift to the other and related, as we talk through it, core presidential power to consult with your attorney general and tell him what to do, because you're fighting crime after all. So Donald Trump could tell his newly installed attorney general if he could find somebody more corrupt than Bill Barr, he would probably choose that person. Of course, I'm sure Bill Barr would do Donald Trump's criminal bidding again in a new administration the way he did in the last Trump administration. All he has to say to his attorney general is, I am ordering you to round up and detain in detention camps all of my perceived enemies, my rivals, my political opponents, all of them, anybody who has criticized me over the past several years. And I'm ordering you to do it without charges being brought, without any evidence supporting charging or detaining them, and without any due process of law. The Supreme Court said that's a core presidential power and it can't be investigated or prosecuted. You can't even ask the president's motive behind doing it. Now, some people might say, yeah, but the attorney general, the people following the president's orders to do this unlawful thing that the president has immunity for, they could be charged, couldn't they? Yes, they could, because the attorney general does not enjoy presidential immunity. So what Donald Trump then does is takes advantage of his other core presidential power, the pardon power, and he pardons his attorney general. So there would be no redress for what I just described in accordance with the powers that the Supreme Court just gave a president. If that isn't sufficiently dire, indeed, I think the way Justice Sotomayor ended her dissent is with fear for our democracy. I dissent. And that is what Donald Trump, if he retakes the reins of federal power, will be allowed to do based on what this Supreme Court just said.
And it's not just Glenn expressing his concern. Even those in Congress are sounding the alarms about Project 2025 and the threat of a Trump dictatorship.
I don't know why or how anybody can support Project 2025. And I know that there was allegedly a joke about dictators and whether or not that's funny, but in the United States of America, dictatorships are never funny. And Project 2025 is giving the playbook for authoritarianism as well as the next dictator to come in.
And look, I understand that the news cycle right now is going to focus on Joe Biden because there's nothing that the media loves more than Democrats in disarray. And to be fair, Democrats are very much in disarray right now. But here's my mentality. Whoever the nominee is for the Democrats, whether it's Joe Biden or someone else, and until it is someone else, I will continue to operate under the assumption that Joe Biden continues to be the nominee, and that the focus here absolutely has to be the risks posed by those who want to enact the Project 2025 plan. There is no ambiguity in the agenda that they're pushing forward. The dangers posed by Trump and his acolytes here are just that evident. So while there may be uncertainty among the Democrats, just know that any Democrat will be a viable alternative to someone who, frankly, deserves to be in prison before he steps foot in the White House.
It is Friday, the 5th of July of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. Precious the little Yorkie is, well, she's, as you know, convalescing of sorts. Got up a little early, had a little bite to eat, and now she's resting comfortably and will be at my feet momentarily, I'm sure. So in the interim, we will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Indeed. Okay, so Precious, I'm giving you daily updates on her. Am I not? Yes, I am. I'm reveling and relishing our time together. We'll just put it that way. And she seems to be okay for now. I mean, relatively speaking. I suppose it's all a hall of mirrors because the prednisone is really what is helping. I'm sure if I took her off it, she would be in a bit of agony and lolling about. But for now, she's okay. Fingers crossed. The decline could happen very quickly, I'm told. So, once again, Gunnar goes for a checkup. Hopefully he's lost some weight, because we have to get that eyelid surgery for him, and he needs to lose some weight, because that's precipitating the congenital defect of bulldogs. Anyway, that's when I will speak with Dr. Dickey about the drug regimen for palliative care. So we'll do that next week, Tuesday, when I take Gunnar in. So we continue on this, goose step march down Main Street. And I don't know. Project 25 is a manifesto. It's a Mein Kampf. It is, everything we know it is. It's a bit heartening, I have to say, that common folk are finally catching on. Will that be suppressed by the powers that be? And who are those powers that be that would do things like that? Yeah, I was taken to task, the usual suspect here in our little village of Rogue River, our anti-government, anti-public education. I don't know. Maybe he's even flat earth. I don't know. It's scary. And I say scary rhetorically because nothing's scary. Well, I take that back. Because, there is Mount St. Helens and her friends. Okay? That can be scary. Anyway, short of that, he had posted on the night before the 4th of July this anti-public education, anti-government screed purporting to be from some teacher. I guess she's going to quit teaching because the kids are being indoctrinated, brainwashed by climate change, whatever it is that they don't like about climate change. Well, I don't like anything about it, but I think the kids should learn it. But that's apparently pushing a political agenda. Give me a break. I don't know. Everything's a political agenda to these people. We breathe oxygen. No, we don't. We breathe little sprites sent on earth by God on high. They're sprites. That's not oxygen, and we're going to put you in jail for saying that. God, get out of here, you Looney Tune. Jeez. We're letting a bunch of Looney Tunes use religion to excuse their Looney Tunes ideas about what? Existence? Give me a break. On the other hand, people who think that we're sitting at the back of a cave looking at shadows might be considered Looney Tunes too, but who knew? There is an ideal world out there, and we're not in it, apparently. So, short of that, we might as well use reason. And how about the rule of law? Legal precedent, that which went before, setting the foundations of the very foundations of what it is that we are as the United States of America. Yep. But I guess we got a Plessy court saying, no, you can't. You can't do that. And we're going to keep you from even using reason, motivation, precedent, legal precedent. You can't use any of that to go after Donald Trump, because if you did, the guy would be thrown in prison in a second. And they know it. And where he goes, they know he's got the dirt on him, because he's got Vlad G. MBS helping him get dirt on every single person that they don't like, and even the ones they do, because you just never know. Keep your enemies close, or keep your friends close, and keep your friend enemies even closer. Make them your friends. They'll never know. All right. So everything's so obvious. It is. Eric Esfredo. I don't know. Don Jr. is Sonny. I think Don Jr. is more like the first husband of Vicky. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. Anyway, oh God. Did a little bit of workout in the garden yesterday, and it was the 4th of July. Did you know that? So we'll get off on the off of the Trump train. Oh, I'll just say this though. It's good that we're hearing about Project 2025 and what it means. But we sure do hear a lot about Joe's got to drop out. He's so senile. Yikes. Even Abigail Disney saying, I'm pulling all my money from the Democratic Party until Joe steps down. Some people are speculating that comes on the heels of Trump saying or having a big conference call with a bunch of billionaires like Abigail Disney. He's going to give them all tax breaks. Oh, tax breaks here, tax breaks there. I'll give you everything you want. And I got to tell you, the very rich, by and large, are left untouched in a fascist Nazi regime. And when I say untouched, I mean they're set up to make even more money in the apparatus of what it makes a fascist Nazi regime. They can always go to Monaco or Monte Carlo. I like my M's. So, ending with those. So, yeah. On the 4th of July, we have this weirdo guy here in town posting this BS, and I just said, called him out. I used a little bit harsher definitions of what he was doing, like MAGA Nazi. Oh, they don't like that. They don't like that at all. Another one they don't like is hillbilly racist. And they'll come out. All the hillbilly racists will come out and say, you call us a hillbilly racist. Well, yeah. You're offended by that? Do you think you're an urban racist? I don't think so, pal. Yeah. They literally come out of the hills carrying the Dixie swastika, and it's like, what? You're offended? You should be, glorying in your hillbilly racism. Jeez. Anyway, so had to give a little bit of a lesson on what makes a fascist, because they love to throw that around in certain ways. It has no meaning. And anyway, the whole point being is that he was asking teachers what they thought about this terrible curriculum that is indoctrinating our children in these government schools. Just literally on the 4th of July. Kind of bothered me. Very much so. Because, how about the age of reason in which our founders came up in? And this is the type of guy who, if you put the Bill of Rights in front of him, he'd call it a communist manifesto. Yeah. Well, they have their manifesto, so why can't we have our Project 2025, where we're going to slit everybody's throat in the night of the long knives? I don't know if they'd say it like that, but they would say it. And they're certainly thinking it, and you know it, too. So, was there any resolution? I guess so. I always like to get the last word, whatever that word is. And, you can play that game for quite a while as well. So why do I? I don't. I'm only sort of exaggerating about how much it carried on. But let's just say that on the 4th of July, I don't like the idea of giving fascism an excuse. I don't. I don't like the idea of, because we're anti-fascist, that is bad. he had used a Project Veritas. What is it called again? Project Veritas. All of a sudden, I'm having a brain lock. O'Keefe's group, the one that got sued out of existence by its own employees and its victims too, that it went after for fraud. And also O'Keefe, look, fascism doesn't exist unless you're a crooked as hell mofo. And dressing up like a pimp and bringing down Acorn back in the day, I will never, ever forgive that little prick that. Mostly because we were working very close with Acorn, and they were part of a voter outreach program, and it was quite successful, and that's why they were targeted. Black homeowners who were being preyed upon to sign over their homes on mortgages that the predatory loaners knew they could not meet. And Acorn stepped in the middle of that, and for that they were taken down. Let's not ever forget why Acorn was targeted. They worked as a roadblock between the burgeoning predatory loan practices that brought down the housing bubble and motivating people to vote to make sure that they had some say in the political process in which their bank accounts and their legacies were at risk. Like all Americans do. And for that, Acorn went too far. And O'Keefe and his group have used that, quote, success. I don't know how much of a success it was because he got sued on that one. They had to pay out a bunch of money too. But the damage had already been done. Acorn was brought down, and everybody wonders what the hell was that about. There must have been something wrong with Acorn. Look how dirty they got. Well, Hillary had been getting dirtied for, since, really, I got to tell you, when they stepped into the governor's mansion back in the day, because she sat on the legal counsel of the Watergate hearings, and there's been get back for that ever since, and now here we are. All the old rat fuckers from Watergate have gotten their wishes, and anything the president does is the law, no matter what it is. Break into your house, break into your psychiatrist's office, break into places, plant things, kill 19-year-old Black Panthers, scary Black Panthers, Fred Hampton, in bed on an actual hit by cops and the FBI. We're going to have that again. Okay. Well, do we let them? No. Hell no. Hell no. In our little neighborhoods, we need to remind people about what's going on and look at this, and they even write it down, and it's called Project 2025, and people go, what the hell? So at least people are hearing the term. All right. Well, I know all sorts of ways that the other side is going to counter our offensive. Because they are very offensive in so many ways. They stink. They do. Aggressively. That's what offensive is. Anyway, I'm going on too many anyways. But it is Friday, and the holidays always mess me up. I actually treated Wednesday night like it was a Thursday night. And yesterday was going to be a Friday. Don't ask me why. I did. But it got hot yesterday. It's going to get hotter today, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But let us give you a rundown about what we have in store for you here on the rest of the menu as we begin in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Yeah, I'll get them all out, I promise. A cybersecurity breach could delay court proceedings across New Mexico, and they don't know how long that delay might be. Ouch. Happening a lot. And you know what? Russia, China-backed hacking efforts. But let's hear about Joe taking a nap instead. Why don't we? A federal judge sentenced 4 anti-abortion activists for a 2021 Tennessee clinic blockade. Yeah, they're little terrorists. They are. And 2 more people charged with conspiring to bribe a Minnesota juror with a bag of cash in one of the country's largest COVID-19 related fraud cases pleaded not guilty. Oh, did they? After the break, we move to the chef's table where the UN human rights chief appealed to voters not to scapegoat migrants and refugees as the elections loom. I think you're a little late on that one. Should have done that a few years ago. And Russian-linked cyber campaigns put a bullseye on France during the Olympics and their elections, just as the right wing thinks they've got inroads across the countryside. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Our homepage is still under construction. I would tell you to go there and all of this long map in which to locate various items on the homepage, but you could just go to the bottom of our homepage and there's a link to the Patreon site there. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really helps us pay the bills and all the other costs associated with running this powerhouse of resistance. So if you could afford to send us what you might spend on an espresso type coffee drink, for instance, it really does help us pay those bills and costs running this resistance, this powerhouse of resistance. And we have to thank the generosity of listeners who have helped us fulfill our civic duties over all these many, many, many years as the founders originally intended. We believe in precedent, and we're going to use our originalism against them to the point where they don't believe it anymore, and look what happened. They don't. Just like we said they wouldn't. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion now, isn't it? It is. Regardless, thank you to those of you who have been so generous over these many years, and thank you to those of you who may consider doing so in the near future, because we're not giving up. Apparently, they are not either. Darn them. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on the social medias, it's so easy. You can just go to Netroots Radio on most every platform. You might have to add and the little, it's not an ampersand, but you know, little and. And you can find the social medias that we are propagating. Is that what we're doing? No, we're populating. And Tom runs those for the most part. Kelly helps a little bit too, so thank you. And to both of you for what you do, because it's more than just those tasks. Kelly and Ricky will be at Netroots Nation in just a few days. Oh my gosh. So look forward to their dispatches and other news from Netroots Nation next week. If you would like to follow me on the social medias, you can do so as well by simply going to Justice Putnam. Sometimes you're going to go to @Justice Putnam. You might not add @ And I post the show notes and links, diaries on Daily Kos, so that you can have quick access to the actual reportage by the actual reporters. And that's very important because sometimes, well, would you say we take liberties? Hell yes, we do. If you would like to follow the show on Twitter, such as it is, and I mean the show and Twitter generally, you can do that by going to @CookbookWest. And please do pick up podcasts by way of TuneIn, Spreaker. Yeah, go to Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, Audible even. Really, wherever podcasts can be found. Please do that. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by the hardworking staff at the Associated Press. What officials are calling a cybersecurity breach at New Mexico's statewide public defender's office could lead to delays in some court proceedings across the state. The New Mexico law offices of the public defender said the breach began last Thursday. A timeline for restoration was not immediately clear. They've had over a week. The New Mexico includes 13 district courts, 54 magistrate courts, 81 municipal courts, probate courts, and additional specialty courts, according to the Judicial Branch of New Mexico website. The statewide public defender's office, which provides legal representation to low-income people facing criminal charges, is the largest law firm in the state with 13 offices, more than 400 employees, and contracts with about 100 private attorneys. The department said the cybersecurity issue was preventing its employees from accessing some internal records while also delaying communications with clients, attorneys, and the courts. Travis Waller of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. For anti-abortion activists who were convicted in January of felony conspiracy charges for their roles in a 2021 Tennessee clinic blockade were sentenced this week to terms ranging from 6 months in prison to 3 years of supervised release. The sentences were below, I would say far below, just by looking at those totals, those asked by prosecutors, and U.S. District Judge Alita Trauger said she took into account the good works of the defendants in their communities. All right. While the judge recognized their actions were based on sincerely held religious beliefs, she said that was no excuse to break the law, so she slapped him on the wrist. In this reporter's opinion, the defendants used their religious fervor to, quote, give themselves permission to ignore the pain they caused other people and ignore their own humanity. And she cited then their good works. Around supporters, including many parents with children, rallied and prayed outside the federal courthouse in Nashville before the sentencing hearings on Tuesday and Wednesday. They also packed a courtroom where the proceedings were relayed over a live stream, filling the benches and spilling onto the floor and into the hallway. The conviction stems from a blockade at the Carafem Reproductive Health Clinic in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, a town 17 miles east of Nashville, nearly a year before the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. The organizers used social media to promote and live stream actions they hoped would prevent the clinic from performing abortions, according to testimony. They also intended the video as a training tool for other activists. Well, that's a nice way of calling him Christo-fascist terrorist, isn't it? Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. 2 of 5 people charged with conspiring to bribe a Minnesota juror with a bag of $120,000 in cash in exchange for the acquittal of defendants in one of the country's largest COVID-19 related fraud cases pleaded not guilty on Wednesday. They were each charged with 1 count of conspiracy to bribe a juror, 1 count of bribery of a juror, and 1 count of corruptly influencing a juror. The judge, U.S. Magistrate Judge Tony Leung of Minneapolis ordered both men detained before trial, saying the crimes of which they are accused threatened foundational aspects of the system. Let's see. I'm scrolling down. They have court documents made public last week revealed an extravagant scheme in which the accused researched the juror's personal information on social media, surveilled her, tracked her daily habits, and bought a GPS device to install on her car. Authorities believe the defendants targeted the woman, known as Juror 52, because she was the youngest, and they believe to be the only person of color on the panel. 3 other people were charged with crimes related to the bribe, but they will not be arraigned until July 10th. The bribe attempt brought renewed attention to the trial of 7 Minnesota defendants accused of coordinating to steal more than $40 million from a federal program that was supposed to feed children during the coronavirus pandemic. And it turns out that one of the accused netted over of the $250 million stolen from the feds, only $50 million has been recovered, and one of those defendants sent millions in stolen money to Kenya that he used to purchase a 12-story apartment building in Nairobi. All right. That brings us to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again. From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Goodfellas on Bikes. The latest offering from Jeff Nichols and his first in 8 years is The Bike Riders, a film based on photojournalist Danny Lyon's expose about the 60s-70s Chicago area biker club, The Outlaws, here called The Vandals. The format is that of a narrative with Lyons, played by Mike Feist in his vintage portable recorder, interviewing Jodie Comer's character, Kathy Cross, wife of the film's lead Benny Cross, brought off by the ubiquitous Austin Butler. The interview is interspersed with action scenes that depict the evolution of the club from its founding as a recreational group by family man Johnny Davis to the criminal outfit it eventually became by the early 70s. Johnny, he's the Tom Hardy character, explicitly claims inspiration from Marlon Brando's character in The Wild Bunch and is without doubt the picture's most tragic character, with what happens to him being a demarcation in the transition from idealism to reality, and a story that might not be without real-world parallels when different groups with asymmetric views of rules and norms meet. Obvious questions about screenplay adaptation arise with any movie based on a book. Since this one's drawn from what amounts to a captioned picture book, much more is original to Nichols and Company, especially with regard to character development. They had the luxury of many still alive people with whom to work and an obviously talented cast. Nichols has stated he doesn't much care for the Goodfellas comparison. In my mind, though, there are worse films to which a director's project can be compared, and it seems appropriate. Like his others, Bike Riders avoids sensationalism and gives us gritty atmospherics while opening a window into this curious sliver of U.S. social history. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. After 3 chaotic years with a politician-led commission and an anti-voter legislature failing to produce Ohio redistricting maps without gerrymandering, a ballot measure proposing a citizen-led redistricting commission will likely be put to the voters in November. The Citizens Not Politicians campaign hopes to replace a redistricting commission which included the governor and party leadership with an all-citizen independent commission. The current experiment lasted only 6 years, but long enough to further entrench GOP incumbents for a veto-proof majority in the state House and Senate. The GOP holds 10 of 15 congressional seats, garnering only 54% of the vote. When maps were vetoed by the Ohio Supreme Court based on the state constitution's provision that no General Assembly district plan shall be drawn primarily to favor or disfavor a political party, the responsibility for drawing maps ping-ponged between the commission and the state legislature. Citizens Not Politicians proposes a 15-member citizen commission of Republicans, Democrats, and independents, none of whom can be current or former politicians or lobbyists. It forbids redistricting for partisan advantage and requires a fully transparent process. Organizers needed 413,000 voter signatures from 44 counties. They submitted over 731,000 from 57 counties. We've linked to the ballot measure at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1934. That was the day known as Bloody Thursday. The historic West Coast maritime strike had been raging since May 9th. Longshoremen refused to cede to the Industrial Association, determined to open the ports by force. The shipping bosses had rejected strikers' demands, including a union hiring hall and recognition of offshore unions. By July 3rd, picketers had been fighting for hours to stop trucks sent to move cargo under police protection as bosses attempted to open the ports. At 8 a.m. on this day, a line of strike-breaking trucks emerged. Thousands of strikers amassed in the warehouse district. The Battle of Rincon Hill had begun. The fighting continued throughout the afternoon in the center of the Embarcadero as strikers attempted to stop the scab freight cars. By the time it was over, longshoreman Howard Speary and strike supporter Nick Bordeaux lay dead from police bullets. 30 strikers had been shot and dozens more lay in the hospital, some critically wounded. The San Francisco Chronicle reported, blood ran red in the streets of San Francisco. In Workers on the Waterfront, Bruce Nelson notes, quote, Bloody Thursday was an epic moment. Strikers conducted themselves with remarkable precision and imagination in the face of 3 successive assaults by police who were using their firearms freely and laying down a barrage of tear gas bombs. Donald Mackenzie Brown, the businessman eyewitness, was overawed by the workers' insane courage in the face of bullets, gas, clubs, horse hooves, death against fast patrol cars and the radio. They fought back with rocks and bolts till the street was a mass of debris. They were fighting desperately for something that seemed to be life for them. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 61 degrees Fahrenheit already, expecting record highs of around 111, which could be much hotter here at the mothership, I must tell you. Winds will be out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies tonight with lows in the mid-60s. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. I should note, last night's temperatures were forecast to be in the low to mid 60s, and they were actually in the mid to upper 50s. So we actually got some cool last night into the house, the mothership, which we have now closed all the doors because we have the doors open at night, let the cool in. But we have closed those doors and windows much earlier than we would normally do in anticipation of record high temperatures today. Sunny tomorrow with even more record high temperatures expected, with highs around 113 to 115, which could be even warmer, I should add. Sunday we should be coming down a few notches. We'll see how that goes. Winds will be out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour both days. Grass pollen is rated high here in Rogue River, and I can attest to that. Can you tell? The air quality index for the region, though, is in the good range, though it's at the upper end of good at 35 parts per million, and it could go into the moderate range real soon if it goes up a little bit more. The daytime UV index remains very high at level 9, so you know how to take care, so do it. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.06 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles. And relative humidity is drying out at 64%, expecting 30 to 20% by the end of the day. Oh, how nice. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 68 degrees with rain. Paris is 78 and sunny. Rome is 87 and sunny. Kabul is 78 and clear. Hong Kong is 78 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 81 and partly cloudy. Auckland, New Zealand is 45 degrees and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 62 and partly cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 77 and fair. And New York, New York is 81 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. The UN Human Rights Chief warned about rising hatred and discrimination around the world in a mega year for elections, calling on voters to put rights of others in mind when they cast their ballots. Good luck with that. Volker Turk made the call with major elections looming in places like France and Britain this week, and in the United States and Germany later this year. Immigrants, refugees, and other foreigners have been scapegoats for some political parties, he said, as it always has, and it always will, in this reporter's opinion. He blasted the politics of distraction and said political leaders need to stand up against the discourse of hate. History tells us, in particular in Europe, that the vilification of the other, that the denigration of the other is a harbinger of worse to come, he said. It's an alarm bell that we need to ring. He insisted in general that there must be zero tolerance for hate speech and rejected any attempts to denigrate the other. Of the Associated Press World Desk brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Photos of blood-red hands on a Holocaust memorial, caskets at the Eiffel Tower, a fake French military recruitment drive calling for soldiers in Ukraine, and a major French news site's improbably registered in an obscure Pacific territory population of 15,000. All are part of disinformation campaigns orchestrated out of Russia and targeting France, French officials and cybersecurity experts said, in Europe and the United States. The Russia campaign sowing anti-French disinformation began online early last summer, but first became tangible in October of 23 when more than 1,000 bots linked to Russia relayed photos of graffiti Stars of David in Paris and its suburbs. A French intelligence report said the FSB ordered the tagging as well as subsequent vandalism of a memorial to those who helped rescue Jews from the Holocaust. Photos from the event were amplified on social media by fake accounts linked to the Russian disinformation site RRN. Russia, of course, denies any such campaigns, but French intelligence said RRN is part of a larger operation orchestrated by Sergei Kuryenko, a ranking Kremlin official. Coming to an America near you. In fact, they're already here. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here on Monday, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Appétit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.